in the AFC, taking on the Dolphins down in Miami. Patrick Mahomes, first drive of the game for KC, and Mahomes' pass is tipped at the line, picked off by Byron Jones, and he fumbles at the end of the play, but the Dolphins do recover. Only the third interception of the year for Mahomes, but it would not be his last in this game. Under pressure here. Not an interception, but a huge loss inside the 5-yard line. Loses 30 yards on that sack, and then this one is picked off by Eric Rowe. 2 picks in the first quarter for Mahomes, and the Dolphins would take a 10-0 lead, but then Mahomes like, yo, we are down, but we are far from over. Travis Kelce, he's open. We say that a lot. Chiefs would end up taking a 14 lead at the half, third quarter. Dolphins with the punt. So McCole Hardman. And he had a lane, he had blockers, and he had all the speed. 67-yard touchdown as the Chiefs roll off 28 unanswered points. It would actually be 30 unanswered by the time we pick up with Tua right here. Looking for Mike Gesicki. Into traffic, didn't matter. Second touchdown of the game for Gesicki. So the Dolphins now trail at 30-17. Tua not done. Sneaks it in from a yard away. It's now a 30-24 game. Chiefs ensuing possession. It's 4th and 1, and they go for it. And Mahomes to Tyreek Hill. Chiefs would win it 33-27. They clinch the AFC West title. Here's Jeff Darlington from South Beach.
Well, the Chiefs had one of those days on Sunday that reminds us of 2 things. Number 1, it isn't always easy for Kansas City. And number 2, even on their mediocre days, they're so very hard to beat. On a day that started with a first quarter that saw Patrick Mahomes throw 2 interceptions, had 1 fumble, and also took a 30-yard sack, it ended with the Chiefs holding off these feisty Dolphins.
You get angry. You don't want to turn the ball over and put your defense in that situation. At the same time, I have the ultimate confidence in the guys around me that we're going to keep battling and find ways to win football games. And kind of like I said, our defense kept us in the game. They kept getting stopped whenever they were just on the field. It seemed like the entire first quarter. And then all of a sudden we were leading at halftime. And I feel like this team plays better when their back's up against the wall, and that's a good thing to have about a football team.
We had a few tip balls. That always, you're trying to avoid that, but at the same time, it's football. Guys are going to get their hands in the passing lane here and there. And the biggest thing is how are we gonna handle that, And I think Pat does it better than anybody in the league. Is when adversity hits, his level of play goes up.
We got to finish on both sides of the ball. Make sure we take care of business there. Not a lot of yards, but we've got to take care of the ball. Too many turnovers, and can't do that against good football teams.
Perhaps the Dolphins could have better benefited from the Chiefs' miscues if they weren't so injury depleted on offense. Regardless, Mahomes still had 393 yards, and the Chiefs locked up the AFC West. Now they can spend the rest of their regular season focusing on locking up that ever-important number 1 seed. In Miami Gardens, Jeff Darlington, ESPN.
All right, look, I know we've been hyping up this Chiefs offense for a while now, but I still feel as if some of y'all don't quite understand what KC's been doing. I think this should help. Over the last 2 seasons, including the playoffs, KC has 8 wins when trailing by double digits. That's the most in the league. They've scored 20 or more unanswered points in a game 12 times. That's tied for the most. And number 15 has only thrown multiple picks in a game twice. Today and Super Bowl 54. And oh yeah, they won both of those games. But here's the deal. Speaking of the Super Bowl, Mahomes remembering that his 2 worst games in the last 2 seasons have come down in Miami, yet he's 2-0 at that stadium. He went to Twitter and said, I have a love-hate relationship with Hard Rock Stadium. As long as you win, you can love it and hate it all you want to. Tim, let me start with you. The Chiefs won this game despite committing 4 turnovers, including 3 picks from Patrick Mahomes. How did Kansas City's defense help them win this game?
Well, listen, they played complementary football, and the mark of a good team is when, one phase of your team is not playing well, the other group steps it up, and that's what happened. We saw the special team score. Obviously, that helps when your offense turns it over 4 times. But defensively, Steve Spagnuolo has that group getting better, which is kind of what he's done throughout his career. They maybe start slow defensively, but they get it going. It's a split zone run by Miami here. Offensive line working to the left, the tight end's going to dig out to the right. The back wants to cut it back to the right, but Chris Jones gets so much penetration early that the back has to try to bounce it outside, and then there's Mike Dana for the tackle for loss. Then on a 3rd and 5 here, they're going to run some type of mesh concept, try to get a pick with zone coverage, and then Frank Clark wins right away. So this ball comes out early from Tua, and basically the route doesn't develop yet. Mac Hollins probably would have had an opportunity there, but the ball had to be out. And then in a known passing situation, it can't always be Chris Jones or Frank Clark. This time it's Deshaun Wharton who gets to Tua. And so you just look at this defense. We saw an interception from Tyrann Mathieu earlier in the football game. They came to play. They really did. And I think that if this team can get that type of effort and that kind of disruption defensively to go with that offense you were just talking about, Michael, then we, different than the AFC, the NFC, we know who the best team in the AFC is.
Yeah, it's just a matter of getting to the playoffs and see how those matchups play out. Rob, let's talk about Miami, though. And again, despite the loss, because this wasn't a season where people were expecting a lot of things from this Dolphins squad, you have been impressed, though, with the improvements that Miami's made from last season to this season, especially on defense. What did they show you today against this high-powered Chiefs offense?
Well, anytime you can have Pat Mahomes throw 3 interceptions, more interceptions than touchdown passes, you're doing something great. So, you know, when I look at what Josh Boyer had to come in and take over for the worst-ranked defense last year and the amount of takeaways, I mean, they were playing this game without Kyle Van Noy, Landon Roberts, 2 of their leaders on defense. So for them to go out there and cause Kansas City some trouble, they have come a long way from last year to this year. So hats off to Miami. I mean, I know it's tough to lose any football game, but you have to come away with this saying, look, we had 3 turnovers against Kansas City, one of the best teams that takes care of the football. Pat Mahomes does not throw multiple interceptions. So when you can do that, you have to feel positive about where you're heading. So if they can continue to improve and get some health back, Kyle Van Noy get back, Landon Roberts come back, they'll be even better. So they got to focus on a big game coming up against New England this week.
Yeah, no moral victories in the NFL, but they'll probably feel a little bit better following this loss than some of the other ones they've had so far here in 2020. All right, let's keep it in the AFC for a second, because the Colts and the Raiders, this matchup also impacting the road as they win it 44-27 over the Raiders.
We believe it here internally that it's truly how can we get better today and keep our head like this. And again, we've had some hiccup games that we haven't executed well enough, but all in all, I do feel us doing that day by day and week by week.
You get to the point where you second guess everything you're doing offensively every time you punt. It's tough right now, but you have to stay confident that your players are going to put it together like they did in Kansas City. To be a championship team and a playoff team, you have to be a good football team in all 3 phases. We can't worry about the playoffs and who's winning and losing around the league. We got to take care of our business. I don't want to hear any more playoff questions. We got to take care of our business, try to find a way to win our 8th football game.
All right, Tim, that offensive performance from the rushing game there in Indy was really impressive in this win over the Raiders. But how was it so impressive? What were they doing to get those big runs for their running backs?
Well, they're good up front, and I think it's one of the strengths of their football team. Their speed on defense is probably the number one thing, but you look at the rest of their team, their next strength is that offensive line. It's a good group. And much like Rob was talking about with Tom Brady being, it's one of these things that does make Indianapolis a pretty dangerous team, because they do have a really good offensive line. They do have a ton of speed defensively, and you see when they put that together, what the performance can look like, and the Raiders felt the brunt of that.
Rob, Tim pointed out a good thing there in terms of getting space for those running backs in Indy. When you give Taylor and Hines that much room, they've got the speed to get past you pretty quickly, as we saw in that highlight. What did you see from that Colts running game?
Look, a rookie, Jonathan Taylor, is very explosive. 21 years old. He's fresh. They say he's, push the ball down the field in the running game. So with an offensive line that can move the defensive line, move it backwards, and you have a running back that's young and explosive and fast, they'll be as successful as they want to be as long as they take care of the football and that offensive line takes care of business and moves people, and they're doing a great job of it right now.
All right, so I mentioned it had some playoff implications on that game. Let's take a look at the AFC playoff picture right now. The Chiefs clinched the division yet again with their win over Miami, their 5th straight AFC West crown. But the Dolphins' loss was the Steelers' win because they've got this primetime game coming up against the Bills, but they've already clinched a playoff berth with Miami's loss. You see the Bills leading the East. Titans got it down in the South right now, but Browns, Colts, Dolphins all in the wild card mix right now with Ravens, Raiders, Patriots still, believe it or not, with the chance. All right, so we got 2 teams in the AFC with only 1 loss right now before the Steelers play tonight, Tim. But you said there's one team clearly better than the other one. I assume that's Kansas City. But how do you see this entire AFC picture playing out right now?
Well, I do think Kansas City's the best team in the AFC. You know, looking at that list, look, I think all of those division winners or leaders right now, like they're good enough to go to the Super Bowl. All of those teams right now that we see at the top of their division can do it. And then I would say this, you know, the Colts that are, you know, in that wild card mix, they are a team that, you know, I think could get hot. And I think that, you know, when you look at Cleveland, similar thing. But those 4 division leaders right now, you know, on any given Sunday, you know, because the ball bounces funny at times, I think they have to feel really good about their chances. You know, teams that have good quarterbacks, guys that are playing well, and have other elements of their football team that are good enough to get it done.
Well, that's a good point, Rob. I'm going to ask your final takeaway in a moment, and I know it's about the Chiefs, but as you look at some of the other teams in that AFC, if you had to put your money on a team right now that could potentially make that deep run and maybe see the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, who is it?
It'd have to be a team with a great defense. So anybody that can match up against what the Chiefs are able to put on that football field with the speed. So you'd think the Steelers could potentially have the pass rush to get after Mahomes, make him uncomfortable in the pocket, and the secondary that can cover. So you're going to have to have a great defense to play Kansas City. So when I look at that, maybe the Steelers can do it if they can get healthy here and continue to progress at the end of the season. I know they had a hiccup against Washington, but they got to get back on track tonight.
Like Tim, you believe the Chiefs clearly are the best team in the AFC and the favorites to win a 2nd straight Super Bowl. But what did you see from them today?